Hello, my fellow project managers. It's your buddy Phil here again. Today, I got a question from a student who asked, Phil, is it possible to map the 6th edition to the 7th or vice versa? So I decided to take up this challenge of doing a very straightforward map and also integrating some of what I have trained on this channel before. I call it the process group pentagon. So we're going to take a look at that. Now, if you're new to the 7th edition, the 7th edition has a very important component that is different from the 6th edition, and that is the component of, you guessed it, the principles. We have 12 principles that have not appeared before in any PMBOK guide, and some folks are a little bit confused as to, okay, is the principles everything that I need to know? And the answer is no. No, the principles are not everything, but they form a very important base that you can build on. I'm going to show you how all these integrate. So let's talk about the principles first. As you can see on the screen, we have 12 principles. I'll give you the skinny of it. Be a good steward, collaborate with stakeholders, think about how to engage your stakeholders, think about value, think about big picture, think about how systems integrate, be a good leader, tailor all your processes and tools and techniques and procedures project by project, build quality into processes and deliverables, navigate complexity, think about risk, optimize your risk responses, use the best risk response for the situation, be adaptable and be a change agent, and that's it. Okay? Now that is pretty new to the PMBOK guide. It's not appeared before. The closest you would have got to this would have been some organizational theory components and maybe the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct, which this is based on, maps back, of course, in many ways, but not directly. So this is relatively new, okay, to PMI. Now, for those of you that have read the Agile Manifesto, the values and the principles of the manifesto, you can see a similar theme, okay? And I'm going to show you how everything wraps together, how this maps back to the 6th, how the 6th maps to the 7th, how the process groups and knowledge areas pretty much map. And also I'm going to show you how the manifesto wraps around all of this. All right, so let's jump into it. So in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition, we have the concept of process groups. Projects need to be initiated, they need to be planned, and then we execute the work, we monitor and control the work, and then we close the project or phase in the project. That is the overarching idea. Initiating is where we develop the project charter and we identify stakeholders. Planning is where we plan with the stakeholders on the project and the team how we are going to execute the project. Executing is the actual doing, working the project, doing what you planned, carrying out that work. Monitoring and controlling is checking to make sure the work is going according to plan. And closing the project is when you transition that deliverable over to the client, and this is the beginning of the realization of value and so on. Now, at different stages, we could have delivery. Delivery doesn't always have to be at the end. Delivery could be at different points along the way in a more iterative fashion. And it doesn't take anything away from the 5 process groups. The 5 process groups are practiced in any sphere. Every initiative has an initiating stage, whether you are in Agile or predictive. The same thing for planning. You plan all throughout Agile, right? We do it in increments. We plan at the product level, we plan at the epic level, we plan at, we plan at the day level, we plan at the sprint level. There's so many ways you could look at it. We call it the agile onion, like layers of an onion. We plan, right? And then we execute. That's what the sprint is also about. Not just planning, but also executing. And we monitor and control. What do you think the daily scrum is? What do you think the retrospective is? What do you think the sprint review is, right? Many of the things we do are all wrapped up into those ceremonies, okay? So initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. It's happening on every project, just in different ways. Now, another way of looking at this is to With the 5 process groups set, begin talking about areas of knowledge, and you can find more about this from pages 90 to 95 in the Agile Practice Guide. We integrate projects. In the world of Agile, it's the team that is involved in integrating and making sure everything is moving in one cohesive whole, right? And when I say the team, I'm talking about the product owner, the scrum master, and the developers, right? In the world of Agile, we also plan and manage scope. The product owner, we call the product owner chief value officer. What are they doing? They're making sure that whatever is being done in a sprint is scope that is of value, is scope that has been analyzed from a value perspective, from an uncertainty perspective. And if high value and high uncertainty requests and requirements are in the backlog, the tendency is that they're going to be done at some point, right? Scheduling is done, costing is done, quality management, resources, communications, procurement, stakeholder, risk. All that stuff is done. It's just done differently. Now, to map this directly to the 7th edition, pay close attention because I'm going to show this to you in a couple of ways. This first one is a high-level view to calm your minds. Those of you who are taking the exam pretty soon and you've not read the 7th edition, right? And you're wondering, help, look, trust me, you already know a lot. You already know a lot of stuff. Even if you just read the 6th, you already know a lot. In fact, I would like to pose to you that if you've really done a good job with the 6th, what you need to do with the 7th is so minuscule. You can either go to hybridprojectmanagement.com and knock it out in a couple of days or a day, or you can look at many of the videos I have on YouTube and just watch those, and you should be able to sail through. Okay, so just search for PMBOK Guide 7th and look for Praizion, the videos that were released from around August of 2021. Those videos, they'll all help you to better understand the 7th edition. All right, so that is the general 6th edition mapping that we're used to. Now let's talk about the 7th edition. In the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, we have domains. Now I've already talked about the principles. On top of that, instead of knowledge areas, we have domains. The domains are as follows. The stakeholder domain. This maps directly back to the stakeholder management knowledge area. I'm going to read just a snippet for you in the 7th edition. Okay, so just follow me real quick. The stakeholder performance domain addresses activities and functions associated with stakeholders. That's a no-brainer. That makes absolute sense, doesn't it? Okay. The next one is team. And you do know that in the 6th edition, the team and everything about the team was more or less discussed in the resource management knowledge area. So follow me to page 16 of the 6th edition. It reads, the team performance domain addresses activities and functions associated with the people who are responsible for producing project deliverables that realize business outcomes. That's it. As straightforward as that. Okay, so here we're talking about project team management and leadership, talking about project team culture, and other topics. High-performing teams, leadership skills, things like emotional intelligence and motivation and conflict management, and tailoring your leadership style. Think about the Hersey-Blanchard situational leadership model, things like that. So it maps directly back to resource management, which is chapter 9 in the 6th edition. Next, we have the development approach and life cycle. I have mapped this to integration because this is where you think about the development approach to use. They got a great graphic on page 35 of the 7th edition, and you can see you can either be extremely predictive or extremely adaptive or somewhere in the middle. So this is what you consider way early in integration. Should I be hybrid? Should I be agile? Should I be predictive? What is my delivery going to look like? What is my cadence going to look like? And things such as that. What will the life cycle phases be? How will I navigate this if I'm in the world of Agile? This is not talked about to the degree I would have loved in the 6th edition, but this is definitely an integration thing. This is what you think about way up front, right? As you're thinking about the chartering and you're thinking about the development of the project management plan and stuff like that in integration, you're thinking about the development approach and life cycle very, very early. Based on what kind of delivery you're going to come up with, whether it's going to be smaller frequent deliveries or small frequent deliveries or one-time delivery, that will dictate your development approach. We also talk about this in chapter 1 in the 6th edition. We also talk about this on pages 18 and 19 of the Agile Practice Guide. Definitely a must read if you're taking a PMP exam. The next domain is planning, and this just covers everything in planning. Let's just look at planning as a process group. The planning domain on page 51, it says the planning domain addresses activities and functions associated with the initial, ongoing, and evolving organization and coordination necessary for delivering project deliverables and outcomes. So there's a smattering of things here, but they all fall into the planning process group majorly. Next, we have project work. Project work, again, maps back to the resource knowledge area. Project work is not just resource management. Project work can also be mapped back to the integration management knowledge area as well. I'm going to read it for you, what it says about project work, page 69 in the 7th, I beg your pardon, edition. It reads, the project work performance domain addresses activities and functions associated with establishing project processes. You see why it's in integration? And then it says managing physical resources. See why it's in resource management? And fostering a learning environment. So for sure, you see why it's in integration, right? And there's some other pieces of it that point to other knowledge areas, but I don't want to dwell on those entirely. All right, talking about the delivery performance domain, a big one that we see here is scope. This is on page 80. It says the delivery performance domain addresses activities and functions associated with delivering the scope, 1, and quality, 2. See that? That the project was undertaken to achieve. So when we're talking about delivery, we're talking about deliverables, and under that on page 82 of the 7th edition, we're talking about requirements, we're talking about requirements elicitation, managing requirements, scope decomposition, many things such as that. Going to the measurement performance domain, this just maps back to a smattering of things that could be in monitoring and controlling as a process group. And it reads, the measurement performance domain addresses activities and functions associated with assessing project performance and taking appropriate actions to maintain acceptable performance. So that makes absolute sense. Let's move on to the final one here, and this is uncertainty. After all, what is risk? Risk, as my buddy the risk doctor would say, is uncertainty that matters. Uncertainty that matters to your project and uncertainty that could impact your project. All right, so follow me down here to page 116, where we see the uncertainty performance domain. It says the uncertainty performance domain addresses activities and functions associated with risk and uncertainty. When we talk about uncertainty, we address uncertainty itself, ambiguity, complexity, volatility, and risk. All right, and don't forget the project work performance domain. We could also map that back to executing, as you can see right over there. Okay, and right here at the base, if I can get out of your way for a second, you will be able to see the 12 at the base. You see that? The 12 principles right there at the base. All right, so that is a high-level map. Now we're going into a more detailed map. Okay, if you wanted to see these in tabular format, right up there, that gives you an idea of how to marry the domains and the knowledge areas. I've said it a gazillion times. If you've done a great job at the 6th, you don't need to fret about the 7th. The pounds will take care of the pence. And it will be as simple as that. For you to just make a mental adjustment. This is what they call it. This is what it is here. That's what they call it. And I'm not saying that it's a direct map of every single item. It's not. Some of them you need to dig. And that's why, as you can see here, I have given you a way of just marrying them at a high level. So development approach, integration, planning, integration, project work, delivery, many of those map to integration. But specifically planning, we could say planning maps to everything. That's understandable. And then you can see delivery, also mapping to scope, mapping a little bit to cost. Now I go a step further to show you why I have mapped some of these as such. Let's go a step further. If you want to get into the deep weeds and the granular details, this will get you started. Right here on the screen, you can see right here above me, I have included a number of pages. And these are pages in the 7th edition. And we're talking about where the domains are, because you know there are 2 sections to the 7th edition. Section 1 has its own numbering, section 2 has its own numbering. This is numbering for the 2nd section, right? Where you have the domains. So if you wanted to map back to, okay, how does this tie to integration? There's a page, right? How does this map to schedule? There's a page. This is the beginning. I might choose to update it, but I'm telling you, for your exam, you want to move away from cramming and you want to get into mindset, mindset, mindset. To wrap up with the mindset dialogue, as you go through all of this information, what you're going to discover here is when it comes to the Agile Manifesto, it wraps everything up into a nice mindset state. All right? Here's the summary. Regardless what you use in the 7th edition, 6th edition, whatever method, you want to be thinking about these things. So let's go into it a little bit deeper. Individuals and interactions should always be above processes and tools. It's a mindset. It's a higher level way of thinking. If you think like that, you will find the exam to be a lot easier. Okay? Over here. Working software, or you could say working product, over comprehensive documentation. Okay. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. It's a mindset. Get that? Responding to change over following a plan. Like be a change agent, just like you saw in the 12 from the PMI, right? This is one of the 4 values of the Agile Manifesto. Now, if you were going to go a step further, I would say, looking at the Agile 12 principles, right, of the Agile Manifesto, right? Our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of product, right? Changing requirements, welcome changing requirements even late in development. You got to harness change for your customer's competitive advantage, right? Deliver working software. And it tells you the time frame. Couple of weeks to a couple of months with preference for the shorter time scale. Business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. And so on. You can go read the Agile Manifesto, but you kind of get the idea how all of these wrap around everything else. But I want to show you, to conclude, the overarching thinking when we take a look at the Agile Manifesto. And it's this. Satisfy the customer. This one right here, that's people-oriented. Work together daily. That's people-oriented. A motivated team of individuals. People-oriented. Face-to-face conversation, people-oriented. And the team reflecting, that is all people-oriented. You get that? So we have a theme of people. The next theme we have here, deliver working software, quality theme. Measure of progress, working software being the primary measure of progress, that's quality through and through, right? Sustainable development is still quality because we're talking about consistency and we're talking about quality of life for the team. Technical excellence and good design enhances your agility. That again is quality. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, is essential. Again, is quality. Keeping it simple, keeping it lean, cutting out the fat. The best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. The best architectures, requirements, and designs. If that isn't quality, I don't know what is. You see, so we could think about the Agile Manifesto as quality-related and people-oriented. And last but not least, the one that people have trouble with. People have trouble with this one in the world of project management, and it's changing requirements. Welcome changing requirements even late. This is the value proposition. This is value. Because welcoming changing requirements even late is done for your customers' competitive business advantage, value, to position them in such a way that they can succeed and get the outcome that they're looking for. All right, so I hope this helps you see how all of these moving parts weave together into one cohesive whole. All right, hopefully you're not as confused as I was in the very beginning, like a chameleon in a bag of Skittles. Hopefully this has helped you to make sense out of the world of the 7th, the world of the 6th, and even a little bit of the Agile Manifesto. All right, you got any questions? Feel free to put them in the comments below. I will be more than happy to get back to you. Thank you very much. I hope you have found this to be useful. Bye for now.